All right, we're back here on SportsLine talking some Preds hockey tonight. General Manager David Poile, head coach Peter Laviolette talked earlier today. We went through some of those news and notes in the first block. Also, players packing up their bags, getting set for the summer yesterday. A lot to hear from those guys coming up on the program. Also can hear from you tonight, 737-7767. Get to some injury conversations in just a second. But first, let's go to David. David, good evening. Thanks for waiting. You're next up here on SportsLine.
Yes. I have two questions.
Okay.
One, in the NFL, when you have an expansion team, I think they do it differently from the way the NHL does. Then my second question, which I want you to touch on is, when Nashville was an expansion team, whom did we get from these other teams, from the other teams that were already in the NHL?
Well, that goes back 20 years now. I would have to look up. I wasn't here then. I'd have to look up some of those guys from the very first team.
About that, and I couldn't see anybody that was really of somebody that Nashville got.
Well, I mean, Thomas Vakoun was a really good goaltender. They got him out of the expansion draft that year, and Cliff Ronning was another guy that they got through all of that. So, I mean, they got guys from around the league that helped them. But you're right. You're not – I mean, no one's getting – Vegas will not get a Patrick Kane or a PK Subban or something like that. They're going to be an expansion team that gets, 8th and 9th forwards from teams to help build around. And so it's a long haul when you're an expansion team, and that's what the Predators did and took a while to get at. But it's a similar process where teams are going to lock down their top 4 or 5 forwards. They're going to lock down 3 or 4 defensemen and a goalie, and you're going to have to pick other than that. And the Preds did that back in the day. Thomas Vakoun was a huge get at that point. They got Cliff Ronning and Tom Fitzgerald, several other guys in that mold that were key members of that first team.
Okay, how does the NFL do that? How does the
NFL do what?
Expansion. If the NFL is having an expansion team, do they do this? Do they do the same way that the NHL does it?
Yeah, it's been so long since the NFL has had an expansion team. I'd have to go back and check it, but yes, it would be something similar like that. Any league that does expansion has some sort of an expansion draft in which you take players from other teams and make a big chunk of your roster. You're not going to have a team that's all rookies or something like that. So, yes, a short answer to your question is the NFL does something very similar. But in terms of the details of how many people were protected and what they chose from, I don't know, because you're talking 25 years ago or more.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Thank you very much for the call. I'll try and look that up maybe in this break if I can. But let's get back into some of the talk of these Predators. And today, maybe the biggest thing when we're looking at this team that always amazes me is the price guys will pay to have the chance to play for the Stanley Cup. Injury after injury after injury, and guys keep going out there and keep battling and keep giving it all for their team in the playoffs. We've seen that before. We've seen that time and time again. And even in these playoffs, we saw a couple gruesome injuries for the Preds to important guys. Ryan Johansson, top-line center, acute compartment syndrome in his left thigh. He lost for the entire playoffs. The type of injury that's really scary, could even be life-threatening in some situations if not treated well. Fortunately for him, it was treated. He had surgery, and while he missed the rest of the playoffs, he's doing very well. He said yesterday that he should be back on skates and able to start working out in about a couple of weeks. Kevin Fiala broke his leg slamming into the boards in St. Louis. He also is way ahead of schedule and should be in great shape by the time they get around to next season. So both of those guys suffered season-ending injuries where you just simply could not play through them. But today we hear about some of the other injuries out there. Craig Smith, high ankle sprain throughout the playoffs, had to skate and play on that. Colin Wilson, bad hamstring injury, had to fight through that throughout the playoffs. And he said some days you could give it a go, other days you just weren't effective enough to help the team. Which brings us to James Neal. Today it was disclosed that James Neal suffered a broken hand, his dominant hand, in Game 1 of the Anaheim series in the Western Conference Final. He had a broken hand. Of course he stayed in the game, though, because he is, after all, a hockey player. And not just did he stay in that game, he ended up with the game winner in overtime of Game 1 of the Anaheim series. And he played every game for the rest of the playoffs. So 11 more games with a broken hand for a guy who's got one of the best shots, best releases in hockey. He was unable to even take a shot in practice for the rest of the postseason. Just flip pucks. Could not take a shot. And he'd get into every game and give it his all. Scored 2 more times in the postseason. He gave it a go with a broken hand. Kept going, kept fighting because he needed to be out there, felt he needed to be out there. And then there's Ryan Ellis, who left Game 5 with an injury, upper body injury, and somehow gutted his way through Game 6 when nobody expected him to be able to go. He goes out there and logs his normal 20-ish minutes of ice time in Game 6. Well, today we find out not necessarily what the injury is because they don't totally know yet. But it has now been described by both head coach Peter Laviolette and today GM David Poile as something significant. Battled through something significant in terms of an injury just to play in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final. That's what these guys do. In Pittsburgh, you had Nick Bonino, who broke his tibia blocking a shot and stayed in the game for the rest of the night. Just some unbelievable stuff that these guys go through and the price they pay to be out there for the Stanley Cup. And we talked about earlier, Mike Fisher, how long do you pay that price? 37 years of age. Can you keep going? Do you have enough in you? Fisher's a tough guy. He's the leader of this team. He had a blast during this run. But how long does he want to go? We caught up with the captain yesterday. His guys cleaned out their locker.
People are just all in for the Preds, and we felt it and we appreciated it, and it was awesome.
You hear from people who have said to you, you know, I didn't really follow hockey that closely, but now like I'm hooked on sport because of this run. Or during the run, did you hear things at all?
Oh yeah, I heard that all the time. Yeah. People are like, we never knew anything about hockey, but we're crazy about it now, and you know that's. You know, I've seen that over the last few years too, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And I think this is taken to another level, and no question, as far as even youth hockey and kids want to play. And I have friends that kids never played at all, and all of a sudden now they're starting hockey, and it's, you know, they just love it. So,
that's where it starts, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Mike, have you ever had more fun playing hockey than you've had the last 2 months?
No, as far as hockey, it was the time of my career, really, and you know, seeing you know how loud this building was, and the whole city, and shutting down the downtown, and yeah, just seeing yellow everywhere, and that was pretty cool. And the other thing is, so many guys too, and runs like this. You know, I had family come in all together, which it doesn't happen too often, and because siblings are all in different, you know, cities and whatever, and you know, we had our whole family here and friends, and it was just kind of a cool thing to be able to celebrate something like this together, and so that was awesome.
Oh, you guys.
Well, I think it was, you know, some people thought it was just all of a sudden the crowd was amazing, but it's always been very, very good, and it's just grown and grown, and now finally everyone's seeing it, and they're like, oh, okay, and now it was a national spotlight, and really I think this city took the NHL to a different level. They've never seen anything like this ever, and you know, that's a credit to the city and the organization. Everyone has done such a good job. So yeah, a lot of it's my money, buying tickets. I don't want to see that bill, but no. Yeah, I mean, that's not for me really to answer, but I think there's a confidence in this organization that we took a huge step forward, and I think you're going to see a lot of guys not that they didn't want to play here before, but their eyes are open. They really want to be a part of this, and might be a little bit easier signing guys.
First year with the C on your sweater, how did it live up to or perhaps even exceed your expectations?
That was probably, I learned the most probably in my career this year. It was just some adjustments and kind of going through some struggles early, and as a team, and to see us kind of come full circle and to where we were was testament to all the guys and what we'd be able to become. And I learned so much, not just on the ice, just about lots of off the ice too, and it was about being a real team. So.
And I apologize, we got in late, so you may have already answered this, but obviously it's 2 days after the fact, but your head right now, your mindset for next year or beyond in your career?
Yeah, I haven't really made any concrete decisions, and I'm going to take some time and away, just kind of pray about it and see what next steps are, and kind of go from there. But right now I'm just kind of, my head just grateful for the run we had and the year, and we'll see what happens.
Certainly can be thankful for the run the Predators had all the way to the Stanley Cup final. Mike Fisher was the only guy on the team who'd ever been to a Cup final before. That was 10 years ago, back in his late 20s when he was in Ottawa. And now, here he gets back there again, and what a fun time that it was, and for all of us. And so it'll be interesting to see what he decides to do this summer. I think the Preds absolutely would like Mike Fisher to be back. They love his leadership, what he brings as a captain, being a two-way centerman, great defensively to check the top guys. He's good in the face-off circle. There's a lot he still brings to the team. So if he wants to play, the Predators are going to have a spot for their captain. They're just going to give him some time to let him sit back, relax, think about it, make sure he's got the drive to come back and be ready to go next year. My guess is he does. We'll see, though. All right, got to take a break. When we come back, a little more from the players. Also hear from David Poyle, Peter Laviolette coming up on the program. Phone line's still open, too, 737-7767. If you'd like to get in on the discussion tonight, more SportsLine coming your way right after this on News Channel 5+.